Don and I would meet, I don't remember how many times, it was at least 3, maybe 4 times, and she would, as part of those meetings, go through her notes on the interviews she had done with the witnesses that she intended to call. These were really dozens of witnesses, and I think it's important to note that they were witnesses related to all of the allegations contained in the first indictment, alleging, I think it was 6 counts. And because she still intended to put that evidence on in punishment even after the case was severed, she would continue to go through a lot of those witnesses. That made it a little confusing. I tried to keep up, but what made the whole situation very confusing was just the volume and the nature of the things being presented. Don would tell me about what I guess you could call extraneous conduct, that was related to the tampering case, that was unrelated to the tampering case, because I guess it was potentially admissible or may be admissible at a potential punishment phase. But these were many, many items, basically every bad thing that any of her witnesses said about Constable Vela, she would relate to me. With regards to the O'Neil and Murad, she did go through her interviews with those witnesses. What my understanding was, and I asked her directly at one point, what's your theory of motive? Because you gave me all of her bank records. I went through all of her bank records. I don't see where she's putting any money in there. Is your theory that she was stealing money or diverting funds or something like that? And Don says, no, we believe she was trying to, we believe she tampered with the records because she was trying to cover the fact that she was using reserve deputies.
One of the reasons the defendant would not want us to see the cash logs is because it lists names of people who work there. And if we receive it in our grand jury response, we could further investigate to find out who worked out at the park and interview them and determine whether they're reserve or whether they're full-time, or what is going on with the use of employees at the park, so we can see how many violations may have occurred with the Securities Act, which is her motive for not giving us the documents and also for creating them and tampering with them at a later time. So as you noted,
But don't you already have in evidence the cash logs that Susan Tristan provided?
We do.
And are those deputies listed there?
There are some deputies listed on it. Also, we have an evidence where I walked through the one sample of the security agreement that had O'Neill's name signed in the margin.
Yes, I know that.
His first year, he was a reserve, and he was working out there, and he did not receive payment. Being a reserve doesn't receive payment. However, we know from all indications that when a customer comes in to pay for the pavilion, they pay in full. Security is provided. However, the money cannot go to the reserve.
Could you please state your name for the record?
Kelvin O'Neil,
Could you spell your last name?
O-N-E-I-L.
And what rank are you?
I'm a deputy constable.
Are you still with Precinct 2?
Yes, ma'am.
When did you first become a peace officer?
2017.
And what was your first job as a peace officer?
Here, Bear County Precinct 2.
Do you recall when in 2017 that might have been?
Say again, ma'am?
Do you recall when in 2017 you may have begun at Precinct 2?
I started in Precinct 2 back in 18.
Oh, in 18, I'm sorry.
Yes, ma'am.
You became a peace officer in 2017,
Yes, ma'am.
but that was your first job.
Yes, ma'am.
So, Mr. O'Neil, see if you will lean really close.
So, has working at Precinct 2 been your only job as a I guess carrying a commission as a peace officer?
Yes, ma'am.
And did the defendant, Michelle Vela, hire you?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you remember in 2018 when it was you were hired?
I don't remember the exact date.
Okay. Was it later in the year or earlier or mid?
I want to say it was mid.
Mid, okay. And when you came on to work in 2018 for Precinct 2, were you a reserve or a full-time?
Reserve.
Do you recall how many hours a month you had to give towards the precinct official duties?
I would say it was at the time 16.
16? Did that change over time?
Yes.
Do you recall what it changed to?
No, ma'am.
When you were first as a reserve officer at Precinct 2, what were your duties?
We were assigned to help with civil. We would work the courtroom and lobby security.
And when you refer to with civil, what does that mean?
Helping the full-time deputies execute civil paperwork.
And you remained a reserve for how long?
I want to say close to a year.
So that would put you as a reserve from roughly mid-year 2018 to mid-year 2019?
Somewhere around there, yes, ma'am.
And at that time, then you became a full-time?
Yes, ma'am.
When you were a reserve, did you ever work Rodriguez Park?
Yes, ma'am.
And when you worked Rodriguez Park, what did you do there?
Provide security
And provide security where?
for the pavilions.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
Yes.
Deputy O'Neil, I'm showing you what I have marked as Defense Exhibit 13. Do you recognize what Defense Exhibit 13 is?
It looks like my Texas Commission on Law Enforcement's personnel status report.
And what that is just in order to be a licensed peace officer, you have to have what's called a TCOL license, or a Texas Commission on Law Enforcement personnel status report, right?
Yes, sir.
And this, in 13, this is in documents similar to that, or documentation of when somebody is a reserve officer versus when they're full-time.
Yes, sir.
And so I just want to go through and just talk about, as you see that, do you remember when you were reserve and when you stopped being a reserve and became full-time?
It says 6/4/18
To,
11/27/18.
okay, so not June of 2019.
Okay. Yes, sir.
And then you started full-time 11/27/18, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so, and I'm not saying that you were, you know, it was a long time ago.
Yes, sir.
Sure, so, but looking at your official documentation, is you could say, well, I started as a reserve 6/4/2018, and I stopped being a reserve and started being full-time in November of 2018. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
And Your Honor, I know I've said it before, but I just want to just make the court aware that we have discussed this stuff with him without waiving our objections because we had to based upon their direct examination. So I just wouldn't want there to be any issue about waiver on that issue. And with that, we'll pass it.
Ready to wrap? Yes. So the first person that you talked to about this case and was interviewed was by whom?
I want to say, I guess you.